You're listening to the Relationships Uncomplicated podcast. Relationship advice so valuable, you won't believe it's free. And now your host, relationship expert, Edith Chironi.
Welcome back to another episode of Relationships Uncomplicated podcast, episode 71. I'm your host, Edith Chironi, and today we're talking about whether infidelity pain ever goes away and how life is after the healing. I believe this or some form of this is a concern to both the hurt partner and the unfaithful partners who are in the midst of trying to heal and go back to normal. The very word normal can be triggering so many questions and concerns for couples, like, will we ever go back to normal? Does normal even make sense anymore? Am I going to have to always be alert even when things feel more normal? Are we going to always have that memory taint our relationship? What if we do go back to normal? Does that mean we're not going to talk about it? Does it mean I'll have to stop bringing it up? Does it mean my partner will feel it's okay, that he or she is forgiven or excused? Big, real questions. So, as always, I want to discuss this topic and also give you a few tips on what to expect from life after healing from infidelity. I invited a guest on the show to help me discuss this and give you her point of view as well. But before I introduce my guest, this episode is sponsored by my infidelity recovery and healing program, It's Okay to Stay. If you're struggling in the aftermath of infidelity but want to stay together, you can rebuild trust and heal through genuine expert help from me and my team personally. I started It's Okay to Stay after seeing couples therapy and self-help options often lacked essential components to help couples save their relationship after infidelity. It's Okay to Stay is a complete 8-week coaching program that involves an online roadmap course and one-on-one work with an affair recovery specialist. So if you have faith in your relationship and you want to stay together and heal, let's talk. I'm offering a 45-minute free consultation for couples who want to save their relationship and need expert help. If that's you, just go online to edithchironi.com/45 and pick a time for a video call that both you and your partner can commit to. I'll hop on. We're first going to start with understanding your struggle, and then we're going to walk through It's Okay to Stay to see if the program is right for you. Look, so many couples try therapy and self-help methods only to be put at odds with each other. But that doesn't have to be you. With expert help, It's Okay to Stay will give you the clarity that you need to understand each other, to heal, and to find a path forward past infidelity. So again, all you have to do to book your free consultation is to go to edithchironi.com/45. That's idithcharoni.com/45. I'll be honored to stand alongside with you on this journey. Okay, so my guest today is a senior therapist in my practice who I'm delighted to have on my show again. Her name is Yael Hakleiniego, and she is a licensed marriage and family therapist on my team of experts specializing in couples therapy and affair recovery. Yael is also a certified hypnotherapist, helping individuals recover from infidelity trauma, utilizing her hypnotherapy skills. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive right into my interview with Yael. Hi, Yael. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Edith. Thank you for having me again.
I am really happy to have you here again. I have to tell you that I got so many great reviews from listeners who really loved our mutual episode, which was episode 68, where I interviewed you about betrayal, PTSD, and how hypnotherapy can help. I got emails and phone calls from specific people saying how helpful this was. And in my consultations with couples for the program, they always, they've indicated that this was really helpful to them. So we definitely will add this to the episode show notes for our listeners to look at after as well. Okay, so this time around, we are going to discuss life after the healing from infidelity. You should know that since we are a small and mighty team, we often meet and consult one another regarding cases or other topics that come up. Yael, you reached out to me noticing a trend lately of concerns that kept coming up for clients, which was the unknown life after the healing process. Because, there's some of the process we do with our clients, and then some concerns show up towards the end where people are, asking questions about, what now? So our clients, and I'm sure many of our listeners are not sure about the aftermath of the aftermath. So
I like the aftermath of the aftermath.
Right? Yeah, because it's scary. It's scary, as long as they have our support, they feel somewhat, protected and that there's someone guiding them. Or, if you read a book or if you do therapy, you feel like, okay, there's something guiding me through this. And then what then?
Yeah.
So tell us what made you want to talk about this specific issue.
So first of all, I agree with the introduction that you just made, but I think every time I work with clients throughout the process, and especially through the coaching program, but also in therapy, it's a very directed. We work with a roadmap. They know what they're doing. They're moving towards a goal, and moving toward the goal of healing is like a blanket that covers them, that they feel secure in some way. And then when we reach towards the end, then as you said, they're wondering what's going to be now. And the person that holds their hand in the process, we're about to say goodbye. And I've noticed that it's something that comes up again and again. And they're worried that when they're during the process, they're so focusing on their relationship. And now when the focus on the relationship shifted to the real life, to the ongoing day-to-day, what to do now. And I thought it's a great questions from clients, and I thought it's very important for us to address it.
Yes, true. And so that blanket that you described, that people feel like they have that blanket over them, keeping them warm, so to speak. Do they feel like it's being taken away? As you say, okay, we're almost done, or feels like you're ready to end, or is that kind of how people feel, you think?
I think especially with a coaching program, when it's very directed and there is the beginning, middle, and an end. And we work towards the end, we work on, how to have the relationship in the aftermath of the aftermath. It's not that they're just staying without tools. We work on that.
Right.
But as I mentioned, when you're so focused on a goal, and your all energy is toward that goal, and then you reach that goal, then what? Okay, I reached it. And as you said in your introduction, you reach that goal, and then what? We're not talking about it anymore. You're totally forgiven. And if I feel pain, so it's still makes sense. So,
Yeah. I call it scary safety, because most of our couples, do get to some safety towards the end of the program. It's gradual, right? They grow and grow and grow into that safety. And then usually when we say goodbye, they're very ready for that. It doesn't come as a surprise, like boom, And by the way, just so everybody knows, there's always an option to continue to do more either sessions or coaching calls, whatever it is that we do with you. So that option always exists. We never desert people and just say, okay, goodbye, and we disappear.
Of course.
To make,
The door is always open.
Right. But even with that, there's always going to be an end for that. And there should be an end for that, right? We cannot be with a couple for the rest of their lives together. We actually want them to learn to swim on their own without us. And when you get to that moment, I call this scary safety. It's like you can enjoy that return sense of safety and calmness in your relationship, but many times not for long. The feelings may arise exactly when you think you've healed. And that's usually because you either allow yourself to be normally vulnerable again, or you are not actively healing anymore. So normally you wouldn't talk about the healing as much. And there's also the sense of, is that it?
Yeah.
Now my partner feels they're forgiven. Does that make things okay? Are we really okay? Is this going to happen again if I'm not careful? Does it mean I have to now be on my toes, noticing everything? Can I ever relax? All of those questions that I tend to call the scary safety. And I think the duality in this phrase is that safety inherently has some alarming factors to it. And I think that happens in everything in life. Mm-hmm. As much as, when we talk about trust, how trust is engaging with the unknown, right? With the uncomfortable. So is safety. In safety in relationships in general, there is some interaction with the scary parts of it, because if I fall in love with you, I also give you the key to my heart and you can directly hurt me, right? And so as much as love creates safety, it's very scary to be in love.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is increased after an experience like infidelity, where you already experienced how it feels to be scared for your relationship, for your safety, right? In the relationship, I mean. And so now when you reach safety, it's even scarier.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. So after we explained this, and hopefully, our listeners are able to understand what it is that specifically we're talking about, I wanted you, Yael, to think about some tips, because it's not completely a desert out there when couples end programs and finish books and finish therapy. It's not that they go into the unknown. So there are some tips that you can give that to listeners who may be worried about ending therapy or ending our program or ending a support group or finishing a book or anything, that would put them in that area of what now?
Mm-hmm. In the aftermath of aftermath.
Yes.
But you know what? Before we're talking about the aftermath of the aftermath and how you end a process of healing, regardless of the process, I really, really want to stress and emphasize the importance of getting an appropriate help. So in order to get to that point that you're considering how life after infidelity will look like, it's really important to invest in appropriate help. And I've heard from couples that telling me that they decided to go to therapy after 4 years. They discover about the infidelity after 2 years, after 3 months, where they were miserable. And I heard clients that told me, I wish we had tried this program before. It would save us so many years of pain. So it's really important to get an appropriate help. Don't assume that just because you decided to stay together, you can sweep everything under the rug and move on. like nothing had happened.
Absolutely.
Healing from infidelity is multi-dimensional process. I call it like that. It includes many, many layers, and you need someone to guide you to go through those layers. So it will be a real healing. And we're talking about the safety. So that safety will be based on something that it's really, really, really deep in.
Yes. So let's call this your first tip, get the appropriate help. I do want to say something about it. I don't want you, our listeners, to think that we are pushing you to do a very specific kind of help. So when we are talking about get the appropriate help, it's an understanding that we hope you can have, that sometimes you can't do it all. Sometimes you can, by the way. There are couples that will not do anything, and because they have a strong relationship, or because they have that emotional intelligence and tools, they figure out a way to go through the healing process and be okay. So if you're that couple and you're okay and you're going through this and you're improving, and maybe you don't need help, right? But I think that in the background of infidelity, for most couples, and this is not just me saying it, it's research showing it, there is some level of conflict avoidance. And so usually there's going to be a lot of conflict that you're going to have to handle as a couple. And if you don't know how to handle that conflict, then get someone to help you. And when Yael says appropriate help, sometimes it's going to be an excellent book written by someone, and you're going to be that resourceful person that's going to read the book and put it into action. I think that's very difficult, going from a book into action, but some people can do it. I actually always prefer that there is a person who is highly, highly trained and skilled and experienced in the aftermath of infidelity. And I'm stressing that because unfortunately, there are a lot of people that will take you as a couple and will say, yeah, let's do couples therapy. And I'm sure you share the same, the same thought as me. Mm-hmm. When we get these couples that have been damaged by therapists, coaches, people that don't know how to help them in the aftermath of infidelity, and they either make the situation worse for the couple, make one partner or both partners feel guilty, accused. They don't know how to give them tools. And so they kind of have venting sessions where people are just venting, leaving with an open wound, bleeding all the way to their, cars. There is just a lot of, a lot of inexperience going on there. And we wanted to make sure that when you get the help, make sure you get the help from someone that really, really knows how to help you, that has a plan. Okay. Stressed is it? You think I stressed it enough?
Yes. No, and I know you're talking because you've heard horror stories. Yes. So I know that you're talking
on a daily basis. Yeah. So yes. Okay. What's your second tip for our couples?
So I think the second tip would be visualize a realistic goal. So when you decide to stay together and you think of, okay, so how our relationship is going to look like from now on. Some people tell me that they wish to erase everything from their brains, to act as though nothing happened. And for most cases, it's not a realistic goal. When I talk with my clients about how a realistic goal looks like, it's mainly focusing on how you're communicating, how you're going to communicate as you mentioned, Edith, earlier, the conflicts that come up, about how to communicate the pain, how to communicate remorse, how to communicate shame, guilt, PTSD symptoms. So if you think about, my goal is to erase everything that had happened and to just move on, no wonder you might be frustrated because it's unrealistic and it's very difficult to, erase a traumatic event. But if your goal is to learn together as a couple how to go through this and how to get stronger from this, this is something that you can definitely achieve. So definitely visualizing a realistic goal in order to be able to manage life after the healing.
Yes. Yes. Regarding that, I do want to add that it is very realistic to expect full recovery, right? Yeah. In fact, one of our program goals is to help couples regain a loving relationship that's based on trust. So it's not that we're saying, okay, whatever you'll get from this, you'll get, or wherever you get, you should be happy. No. We absolutely think that that full recovery is something that you should realistically expect. But we also think that in many cases, you will end up having an improved relationship, by the way, because you will be more connected and united around your needs and boundaries. So it's all in how you define success. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. How you define healing and success.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think what you're saying, Yael, is when you define success, or at least you wouldn't suggest to define success as lack of triggers, lack of memories, those things, because unfortunately, unless you get amnesia, these are not going away. What we wish for you is that they're going to not be in the center of your life at this point, and that they're going to be tucked away somewhere. And then when they do surface up, you'll have the tools that we worked on to handle when they do come up. So if 6 months after you go to a restaurant and all of a sudden you're triggered, you're able to come home and say, I'm triggered. I feel XYZ. I'm, whatever. And then you're able to have a conversation using our tools instead of getting into a awful, either, ignoring and, not saying anything about it and creating resentment, or having an awful discussion about it that leaves you in a very, very dark place in the relationship. All of those things. So we want you to be able to use, instead of expecting those things to disappear, we want you to be able to use the tools and understand that they're not disappearing. They're just moving to a more peaceful area in your brain, that they're not going to constantly hover over you, but they're going to be there. Nothing you can do about that. I guess that makes it clear, right?
Right. And the reason I stress the goal, because I'm worried about the frustration of people when they, define X as healing. And then when they're not reaching this point, then the pain, grows bigger and bigger. So I really agree with everything you said in terms of, focusing on gaining the tools to communicate the struggle rather than getting rid of the struggle.
Yes. And I think your next tip has to do with that as well.
So based on what we're just talking about, creating a realistic goal, I want to mention one more thing that came to my mind and might be helpful. So there is a book by Esther Perel, a very famous couples therapist that worked with couples in the aftermath of infidelity. And she devoted her second book, The State of Affair, talking all about the aftermath of infidelity. Mm-hmm. And at the end of her book, she talks about, as you mentioned, the aftermath, life after healing. And she identifies 3 types of couples. They decided to stay together. They went through the healing process, but each of these types that I'm going to mention experienced life after healing in a different way. So she talks about the sufferers. This is the first type that she mentions at the end of her book. And when she talks about the sufferers, she said that those people that those couples that decide to stay together, work towards healing, reach their goals, but they're still in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And they're stuck in the pain and not able to release it in a way, not able to move forward or to make room for other things to be possible other than the pain and the anger. And
Mm-hmm.
I want just to quote what she said. Couples like these live in a permanent state of contractions. And I really like it that they're always, in this stress of pain, and they cannot
Mm-hmm.
enjoy life as they used to. So this is one type she talks about. The other type that she talks about are the builders.
But wait a second. Let's talk about this one. Let's clarify. Okay. So
I'm running.
That's okay. But for our listeners, there are three types according to Esther, and there could be more. And so what you're talking about, the sufferers are the ones that it almost doesn't matter whether they're a week after the revelation, a year after the revelation, 10 years after the revelation. They made a decision to stay together, yet they are constantly suffering. That's what.
Yes. And she refers to them like they share a cell in marital prison. So yes.
In marital prison. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. So, and we both met these couples, right? We know what Esther is talking about. These are the couples that 15 years after the revelation will come to us. They usually will not come to do our recovery program. They're going to come to us for therapy. And it feels as if it happened yesterday. It feels as if no healing happened, no forgiveness happened, no process happened. It's just they are suffering together and constantly live in that, the contractions you said. Yes,
mm-hmm.
There's always this tension, whether they're talking about the infidelity itself, but usually that's not the case. After 15 years, they talk about the infidelity through other things. It just never goes away. So they have a argument about which house to get, and it's always the infidelity goes into that argument. It's like this baggage that they take with them everywhere. They're just not able to move on. And I feel, my heart goes out to those people because they live in exactly like she explained, right? That prison cell throughout their relationship. And sometimes you even ask, why are you together, you guys? Life is good. Why are you suffering like that? You have to do something about it. Or you can't be together because this is torture. That's at least how sometimes I feel. And I share that with my clients. I have no problem telling them, you either really have to do something drastic to change things, or you may have to consider ending the relationship, and that's perfectly okay. Sometimes it's not necessarily a failure of the relationship if you are not happy together for so many years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sufferers. What's the second type?
So the second type that Esther talks about are those couples who she calls them the builders, and the couples that decide to stay together, work towards healing, and they just want to have the relationship that they had, to get to the comfort. Mm-hmm. They appreciate the commitment and the loyalty for their relationship, and they just want to go back to have peace and quiet in their relationship without a change, without a transition, to recover and to go back to the comfort of their old relationship.
Yes. What do you think about that?
So I'm a little biased, and my bias is that, you can learn from traumatic experience, and it can be opportunity, invitation for opportunity to change. Mm-hmm. But it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that people need the comfort of how things used to look like. Mm-hmm. And it gives them some sense of safety, as we talked. But sometimes the safety from this way of managing the aftermath of infidelity can be risky.
Yeah. I think it's rooted, it's exactly what we said before. It's rooted in the understanding of safety and understanding of trust, where people tend to feel very comfortable with their blind trust, thinking that trust is knowing that trust is the opposite of risk. That's how I would say that. And that's not only me saying that. These are ideas that float around in our community of therapists. And I think they are originated in the work of Rachel Botsman, who researches trust and other things. And she talks about it. But if you ask people, most people, I think, will tell you that trust is rooted or has to do with lack of risk. And in reality, it's exactly the opposite. Trust is a confident engagement with the unknown, with what we don't know. And so when people the builders, I guess what they're trying to do is that they see trust as this lack of risk, and they want to constantly go back to that blind trust that they had before. Now, in reality, we both know that's not possible, nor does it make any sense to do it. And so I think the missing piece for those couples is that it doesn't matter what they do, they'll never have the trust that is based on the lack of risk. And they can keep trying to strive towards it, and they're going to hit a wall and go back. And they're going to hit a wall and go back and hit a wall. They're going to hit walls on a daily basis all the time and get very frustrated. That at least has been my experience. So one of the first things that I do with my couples, and I know that you do the same, is we help people have that mind shift towards the goals that really make more sense rather than going back. We set up very, very different goals, right?
And different understanding of the relationship.
Yes.
And that brings me to the third type that Esther talks about, unless you have something else you want to mention.
No, go on.
The third type, and when I mention I have a bias, I think this is because I view it as an opportunity to explore transformation. And the third type are those explorers. She refers to them as explorers that take the affair as an opportunity, as a way of shifting, transforming, changing their relationship to something different, or something even different in the way they communicate, different in the way they experience one another. And in that way, and I think I said the word opportunity like 10 times in the last minute, but in that way, they can actually have this traumatic experience as a life-changing event. And something that Esther talks at the beginning of her book, that, as you know, she doesn't think of blessing anyone with cancer, but it changes their life. And sometimes with infidelity, it's a horrible thing that your relationship, that can happen to your relationship, and it's very traumatic. But it can also create an amazing shift.
Right.
Positive one.
And she talks a lot about, and I think we share again the same understanding, which is you can grow from trauma or trauma growth. There is such thing. So when people go through traumatic events, some will find ways to grow from it rather than get stuck in it. And definitely, I don't know if it's a natural thing or if, it's something that people just have that ability to grow. Sometimes you need help with that. And that's perfectly okay. So don't think, oh no, I'm not that type of person. I'll never be that type of person that grows from trauma. I don't know if you have to be the type, but you can learn to be a type. And another thing I wanted to say about those three, by the way, I know that in her book, Esther Perel refers to them as three different groups of couples of, people in a healing process. I think, and I don't know if that's what she meant in her book or not, but I think that I can see all three in almost all of my couples. I know it sounds crazy, right? I think we are so complex as human beings, and put in a relationship with another person, we add so much more
complexity.
Yes. And so I don't know if you can only be a sufferer, or you can you can sometimes be a sufferer, and that's perfectly okay. That's what I need to be right now. I'm a sufferer. Let me be, And then I'm going to have moments where I'm more hopeful and working towards being an explorer and exploring things. And then boom, sometimes. So I think that if you're listening to us and thinking, oh, I'm type A, or I'm type B, or I'm type C, also think about how you can be type A in certain situations and then type C in other situations. Don't see yourself locked into, because that's very dangerous, right? Because if you're locked into being a sufferer, you're doomed. Like, what are you going to do, right? Sometimes that's the case, and 15 years go by, and really that's what you're experiencing all of the time, then maybe that makes sense. But for most couples, I think that's not the case. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. And it also can be in phases, like you're the sufferer at the beginning, or then you need the comfort of the builders in order to be explored. And if we have time, I want to say something about that, because I have couples that say that they have like a timeline. And I don't know if I would love to quote one of my clients that said, like, the seed of hope, like towards healing after 18 months or healing after 2 years. So this timeline where it needs to take place sometimes makes people very, very stressful and frustrated about their healing process. So
because they're thinking,
oh my God, it's been 2 years. Yeah. I'm sorry. It should have been gone. And there is no timeline. It takes time. And when you appreciate each phase, it's another important part of healing and healing after healing.
But you know what? I blame our community of therapists in that to some extent, because not one, not two, not 30 couples were told that there is a timeline. They literally have consultations with therapists who tell them it'll take you 6 months to heal, or it'll take you 3 months, or it'll take you 3 years, someone told me, or it'll take you. How do you know? How do you know? This is so complex and so multi-layered that really no one knows, except from knowing that there are phases of healing. If anybody gives you a timeline, like with actual time, I would highly, highly doubt that. And I would actually think that this hinders your ability to heal, because you're always going to be on the clock thinking, I'm not healing, I'm not healing, I'm not healing, which, oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah. And talking about that, if you want, I can move to the third.
Yes. Our third and last tip for that. Yes.
So if we're talking about the timeline, and we're talking about like how healing process looks like. So, rarely healing is linear. It has ups and downs, and it changes, But what I think the third tip would be expect symptoms after healing. And I talk specifically to the hurt partner that experiences PTSD. So the fact that you decided to stay together, that you work towards healing, that you're in a good place in your relationship, that you gain tools how to communicate pain and trust and so on and so forth, doesn't mean that you're not going to experience waves of symptoms. We talk about it a lot. It's a traumatic event, and out of nowhere, You can, something can remind you, something can trigger you, and then you can have waves of all sort of symptoms that you thought you move on. You thought you thought you moved on, but you still, sometimes it can come. So expect that. And the goal is, as I mentioned earlier, is to know how to manage those symptoms, not to get rid of them. So once those waves come, and you know that there is a possibility that they'll come, you know what to do as individual and in your relationship with your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, I mean, I can't stress it more.
Yeah.
Triggers don't necessarily completely go away. Yes, we hope that you're not going to experience the same level and intensity and I guess at the same consistency after or when you're already in the third phase of healing and then moving on, but we cannot say that you'll never be triggered ever again. The concern that I hear from both partners, by the way, is that it will be there and may come up or creep up when you're not noticing. And there is this fear, mostly I think of hurt partners, that if the roadmap to healing is completed, that may mean that there is no more space to bring up the infidelity anymore, to express the pain, to feel down, etc. Hurt partners also fear that it may mean that the unfaithful partner is going to be off the hook, feeling everything is forgiven and forgotten. All of this is to be expected, right? We as experienced therapists are very much aware that the healing doesn't end abruptly, and that even when the pain subsides and the relationship goes back to normal, some turbulence can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we make sure to equip couples with tools to connect, reconnect, and maintain success. I'm going to repeat that. Connect, reconnect, and maintain success. Because if you have tools, you'll know how to get out of those dark moments. So instead of hoping that those dark moments will never come, you know how to get out of them.
Yeah.
Right? And if you feel disconnected, I don't know, 6 months go by and all of a sudden you go back to your old habits and again, you disconnect. There's this gap between you. You know how to reconnect, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll know how to ask and offer support from one another without criticism or lashing out. You'll know how to prevent buildup, and you'll know how to heal each other's emotional wounds. I really and honestly think that our program is so thorough in the way that we leave no stone unturned, and we make sure that our couples know how to go on and maintain the success. Wouldn't you agree, Yael, that we really leave our couples with a toolbox and a maintenance plan so that they know how to fix things after?
Yeah, and I think mainly how to talk and how to listen, and mainly how to listen so you can be there for one another. And I totally agree with every word that you said, that it's not about the what, is about the how to manage what comes. So this is a main shift. This is a main change, how to manage it together as a team. And we're definitely, this is something that we focus a lot in our work with clients.
So going back to your point, Yael, you mentioned that it's normal to experience triggers not only during the active healing process, but also past the active efforts to heal. So what are some suggestions that you might have for our listeners if that happens?
So I have a lot of suggestions, and I talk specifically with my clients, that about things that relates to their specific experience. But I want to say one thing very general. When you notice that symptoms come again after healing, I think one thing is important to notice: what the context of the things, the context of the symptoms coming up. And one of the things that I've seen lately especially with people who slowly go back to the office or slowly go back to, we're talking about COVID and we're talking about slowly things change around the restrictions. So people less home all day together. In the past year and a half, people were home a lot, and something about the healing process, it benefited the healing process in a way, because you're home all day together. And I notice now when people mention to me that triggers come back, where the partner goes back to the office, go back to social events. So this is a context. This is an example for a context that you need to pay attention to. How I need to manage my relationship now when we're not home all day together, when we need to go back to home, when we need to go back and socialize. So this is an example of paying attention to the context and revisit
how the context is changing
and affecting, the healing.
Yeah.
And revisit the rules or the understandings together, or make some plan how you manage.
Right. So don't only think there must be something wrong with me because we're a year after and I'm supposed to feel okay. And now when he or she is going back to the office or traveling, or I'm all of a sudden going backwards. Don't think like that, but think about how your context changed and how it makes perfect sense that you would go back to that moment of uncertainty. That, okay, now, it makes it easier to trust when you have the person right in front of you. But how now the real struggle is to trust and engage with the unknown when your partner is not there in front of you. Makes perfect sense. And the context
changes all the time. It can be, as I talk about, like the changing COVID situation, but it can be different things. Kids leave the house, it can be different things.
Absolutely. But this is an amazing example because it's happening to a lot of couples, right?
Yeah.
Okay. These are very, very important points. And I think couples listening to us talking about this now have a better idea of what to expect when it comes to the aftermath of the aftermath. So
I like that.
Right? I think we gave people some points to start thinking about, some food for thought. So, thank you, Yael, so much for being on the show again. And this is an opportunity for me to also, personally thank you for the amazing work that you do with our couples. And I'm not just saying that, it is what your couples are saying about you. Maybe I'll tell our listeners that in this world of uncertainty, we always want to make sure that we provide the most quality service to you, to our couples. And, people are disappointed by so many organizations, by government, by decisions, by their partners. So we feel that we need to be that rock for you that doesn't fail you. And so in order to do that, we have to get our couples' feedback. We do a process with them, and then we ask them to evaluate our services, not just give us, from 1 to 10, how do you feel? But actually we use a specific form for our clients that we ask them to give us feedback, about a lot of things in the program. And then they can also choose whether they want to give a testimonial. And actually, not long ago, one of Yael's couples agreed to give a testimonial. They did ask to stay anonymous, and we're absolutely going to respect that. So we're not going to say their names, but here's what they said. They said, "This program, along with the podcasts, really helped my husband and I move along the healing path without as many stalls or setbacks. We communicate in a much different way. For the first time in maybe our 16-year marriage, we finally hear each other. The affair was devastating and life-altering. For months, we struggled to move through the devastation. This coaching program gave us the tools we needed to dig ourselves out and not create damage in the process. Before this program, we would discuss the affair and our issues, and I would walk away with more trauma. Now, our conversations provide healing and comfort and have completely changed the path I believe we're on. I was looking for a pathway out of the pain. I wanted someone to tell me what I need to do to feel better. And this program, along with the roadmap, videos, and coaching calls, did that. Thank you, Yael and Edith. Whew, what do you think about that, Yael?
I always, even working with couples for almost a decade now, always hearing words like this. You see, I out of words. I
know you don't like to talk. You're too shy.
But yeah, I'm humble. We meet people at the worst time of their life, in a very challenging phase of their life. So hearing words like this, it warms my heart, and I'm honored. I don't have more than that. Like, I'm absolutely honored.
Yeah. And it's really important for us, it's important to us, for you to understand that even though we've been doing this for years, really on a daily basis, we still are very moved when people write these things or tell us these things, or we notice change. Literally, when we read your evaluations, we are in tears, right? I mean, that's my experience. I know it's your experience,
right.
We are literally in tears, and each time we are humbled by how amazing people can be in the most difficult times of their lives. Okay. So tell maybe the listeners, if they want to learn a little more about you, where they can find information.
So they can find information about me on the website, edithsharoni.com/Yael-Haklai-Niego. It's a lot of letters.
We're going to put it in the show notes for people
but you have all of the information on the website that you can read about me and my work.
Yes. Perfect. And we're going to put on that page also a link to this specific podcast. So whoever goes to that page will also be able to see our podcast that we did together. Okay. So thanks again, Yael, for being here.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Yael. Like I said, we probably could continue for hours, but I hope I got to all of the important questions you might have had for her. This episode is packed with tips, ideas. So if you feel overwhelmed, no worries. Just take in what you can and come back to it. We're leaving it. It's yours forever. All right, guys. So thank you so very much for tuning in. Don't forget that this episode is sponsored by my Infidelity Recovery and Healing Program, It's Okay to Stay. If you're struggling in the aftermath of infidelity, but want to stay together, you can rebuild trust and heal through genuine expert help from me and my team personally. I started It's Okay to Stay after seeing couples therapy and self-help options often lacked essential components to help couples save their relationship after infidelity. It's Okay to Stay is a complete 8-week coaching program that involves an online roadmap course and one-on-one work with an affair recovery specialist. So if you have faith in your relationship and you want to stay together and heal, let's talk. I'm offering a 45-minute free consultation for couples who want to save their relationship and need expert help. If that's you, just go online to edithsharoni.com/45 and pick a time for a video call that both you and your partner can commit to. I'll hop on. We're first going to start with understanding your struggle, and then we're going to walk through It's Okay to Stay to see if the program is right for you. Look, so many couples try therapy and self-help methods only to be put at odds with each other. But that doesn't have to be you. With expert help, it's okay to stay. We'll give you the clarity that you need to understand each other, to heal, and to find a path forward past infidelity. So again, all you have to do to book your free consultation is to go to iditcharoni.com/45. That's iditcharoni.com/45. I'll be honored to stand alongside with you on this journey. Again, thank you so very much for tuning in. I'll see you in our next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Relationships Uncomplicated. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. See more information at iditcharoni.com and alinagershonoff.com.